What if true strength isn't about being hard, but about being deeply kind? From a young age, many of us were taught to be strong. That the world doesn't have space for those who are soft. That in order to survive, we must hide our tears, swallow our pain, and keep walking like nothing can break us. We live in a world that glorifies toughness. Be resilient, they say. Never show weakness. Don't let your heart lead. Stay in control. And we've come to believe that this is strength. But what if it's not? What if true strength isn't about building walls around your heart, but learning to open it, even when it's risky, even when it hurts? There is another kind of strength. Quiet. Unassuming. Gentle. The strength of compassion. It's the strength that shows up when you choose softness in a world that rewards sharpness. When you choose forgiveness while your heart is still bleeding. When you could easily lash out, but instead, you breathe, and respond with understanding. Compassion is not weakness. It is a deep, steady inner power, born from those who have walked through fire, sat with their pain, and emerged with hearts still open. Compassion is not the absence of suffering. It is the courage to hold suffering, to witness it, and to say, I will not add more pain to this world. Real strength is not in how loud you speak or how firmly you stand. It's in how gently you hold someone's trembling hand. It's in how patiently you listen to what isn't being said. It's in how bravely you stay present, even when it's uncomfortable. Because that kind of strength isn't given to you. It's cultivated, through awareness, through honesty, through deep presence with your own wounds. The world often values people by what they achieve. But in the Dharma, the real question is, are you causing harm, to yourself or to others? Compassion, then, is not just a feeling. It's a way of being. A conscious choice. A sacred path. You can walk through life armored up. Keeping everyone out, never letting yourself feel too deeply. You can chase success, recognition, status. But at some point, you may find that real warmth doesn't come from what you've gained, it comes from how you've lived. Have you ever sat with someone who didn't try to fix you? Or offer advice, but just held space for you? Their presence alone was healing. They didn't judge. They didn't rush. They didn't try to control. They were simply there. That's the power of compassion. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. But it transforms everything it touches. And yet, compassion doesn't come easy. It's not a gift someone hands you, it's a journey you take inward. A journey of coming home to yourself. To the parts of you that feel unseen. To the child within that once felt abandoned. To the fears you've tried to outrun. To the grief you've buried under achievement. When you begin to touch those places with gentleness, you begin to touch the pain in others with understanding. And you stop needing to fight. You start to listen. You start to love. The Buddha once said, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. And the love he spoke of is not sentimental or romantic. It is compassion, cultivated through mindfulness, insight, and patient practice. You don't need to become someone else to be compassionate. You just need to pause. To breathe. To see others, and yourself, with fresh, unclouded eyes. When you live from compassion, you no longer need to be right all the time. You value peace over pride. You no longer react, you respond. You don't need to win, you just need to be true. You see pain, not as something to fight, but as something to hold. And in that holding, something beautiful happens, healing begins. Compassion heals not just others, but you. Because kindness is a circle. What you give, you receive. When you stop causing harm, you stop harming yourself. And when you offer softness to the world, that softness returns to you, quiet, but steady, like a hand on your back saying, You're okay. You're safe. You can let go. So if today you feel tired of being tough, if the world has made your heart feel heavy and closed, let this be your reminder. You are allowed to soften. Not to collapse, but to truly live. To live from the heart. To live with presence. To live from a deep, unshakable compassion, gentle, but fearless. Part 2, Understanding True Inner Strength. Strength. Such a familiar word. And yet, the older we grow, the more distant it feels from what we truly need. We've been taught a version of strength that rewards hardness, never showing weakness, never letting anyone see us fall apart. Strength, we were told, means being in control, staying ahead, keeping it all together, and never letting your emotions take over. So we toughen up. We learn to bite back our tears. Put on a brave face, speak with authority even when our hearts are trembling inside. We bury softness beneath layers of pride, and we wear exhaustion like armor. We become people who can handle anything, except our own pain. And eventually, after all the striving, all the proving, all the pretending, we find ourselves empty. Because the strength we've been chasing was never real strength to begin with. It was just our ego trying to survive. And then, like a quiet bell ringing through the noise, we remember the Buddha's words. To conquer thousands in battle is not true victory. True victory is to conquer oneself. Not the world. Not others. Not the situation. But your own mind, your own reactivity, your cravings, your anger, your fear, your endless chasing. That is the victory that brings peace. That is the kind of strength that never collapses. Because it doesn't depend on anything outside of you. Real inner strength is not the absence of pain, it's the ability to sit with pain without letting it consume you. It's not about being unshakable because nothing touches you. It's about being so rooted within yourself that even when the winds of life come rushing in, you can bend, but not break. It's the courage to stay soft in a hard world. To choose presence over escape. To respond with understanding, even when the world teaches you to react with anger. To feel fully. Without being drowned by your feelings. Strength isn't the ability to control other people. It's the ability to stay anchored in yourself, even when everything around you is out of control. You can't stop the storms from coming, but you can become the one who knows how to breathe through the storm. Who doesn't lose themselves in the chaos. Who holds steady ground when things fall apart. And that, too, is a choice. A practice. A path. The mind will want to resist pain. It will want to blame, to run, to numb. But inner strength is when you gently notice that urge, bow to it, and stay anyway. To be honest with yourself. To feel what hurts without collapsing into it. To remember that this, too, is part of the path. That failure does not mean you are weak. That being misunderstood does not mean you are unworthy. That not having it all together does not mean you are broken. It means you are human. And to accept that, with kindness, is the beginning of deep, lasting strength. You don't become strong by pushing everything down. You become strong by turning toward what's real. By daring to be with what you once thought you had to escape. By no longer needing to win the argument, prove your worth, or get it all right. Inner strength is not loud. It doesn't shout or conquer. It's the quiet power of someone who doesn't need to control everything, because they have learned how to master themselves. That kind of strength is born slowly. Not in the moments when everything is going well, but in the days when you're tired, disappointed, misunderstood, and you still choose to breathe, to soften. To stay awake. Every time you don't react impulsively, you're getting stronger. Every time you choose silence over unnecessary conflict, you're growing in depth. Every time you forgive, you're not giving in, you're freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. This is what real power looks like. And over time, you no longer chase the world's approval. You no longer need to control how others see you. You stop living from performance, and start living from presence. You return home, to yourself. To your breath. To your own capacity for resilience. Not built on hardness, but on truth. A truly strong person is not someone who never cries, but someone who is not afraid to cry, and not ashamed to begin again. They are not invincible, they are deeply human, and deeply honest about it. They are not perfect, but they are real. And in their realness, they become unshakable. Because nothing can be taken from someone who no longer depends on outside conditions to feel whole. So maybe today, you're tired of pretending. Maybe you're exhausted from holding it all together. Maybe you've confused control with safety, and you're ready to let that go. Good. Because this moment, is where strength is born. Not in how high you climb, but in how gently you return. Not in how loud you speak, but in how well you listen, especially to yourself. Not in what you prove, but in how deeply you heal. True strength is when you don't need to harden in order to protect yourself. You become so rooted in compassion, in mindfulness, in inner peace, that nothing outside of you can shake who you are. And that is the most powerful kind of strength. In the next part of this video, we'll look even deeper into one of the most misunderstood truths. That compassion is not weakness, but the greatest form of courage. That a soft heart is not a fragile one, but a deeply awake one. Let's keep going, together. Compassion is not weakness. In life, there is a common misconception that compassion is softness, vulnerability, or a lack of strength. But in truth, it's the opposite. Compassion is not what you turn to when you've run out of other options. It's the choice of the awakened heart, the heart strong enough to not let pain harden it. And steady enough to remain open in the face of suffering. Compassion is the power to stay. To stay with what is real, to stay with pain, not to run from it, deny it, or fight it. It's the quiet courage to keep your heart open when it wants to shut down. It's seeing someone in pain and instead of judging them, you look at them with understanding. It's standing in the middle of your own hurt without trying to pass it on. To live with compassion is not easy. It requires you to be intimate with your own suffering and still be able to see the pain of others, not drowning in either. It asks for inner strength. A mind that's learned how not to lose itself in emotions. A compassionate person is not always smiling. They are someone who has walked through deep valleys of grief and still remain gentle. No one is born with compassion as a natural gift. It is cultivated, through an inward journey of facing our wounds, and from that place, beginning to understand the wounds of others. Compassion is not a reaction. It's a presence. When you're truly present, with an open heart and steady breath, you begin to see, every person is carrying something. Everyone has been broken in some way. And everyone is doing the best they can with what they know. When you see this clearly, judgment fades. The need to be superior fades. What remains is a silent presence that can become a safe refuge for others. In Buddhist teachings, metta, or loving kindness, is not just about being nice. It is rooted in wisdom. A truly compassionate person does not act out of impulsive emotion, but from understanding. They do not lash back when insulted. They take a step back, observe, and respond from stillness. It might be a gentle no, a silent pause, or even just a kind look. Whatever is born from compassion carries healing with it, not just for the other, but for yourself too. And compassion must include yourself. Many people are kind to others, yet cruel to themselves. They criticize, judge, and punish themselves for every mistake. But true compassion starts from within, from the ability to understand your own limitations and imperfections without self-hatred. From the courage to embrace your own unhealed parts without needing to hide or fix them right away. When you can hold yourself gently, it becomes easier to do the same for others. There's a quiet power in compassion. It doesn't need to win. It doesn't need to be right. It only needs to be present. And that very presence, grounded and honest, can melt the walls others build around themselves. Because deep down, even the strongest among us long to be touched by care. Not pity, but the kind of presence that says, I see you, as you are. And I am here. In a world that teaches us to be strong by not feeling, by not caring, by moving on quickly, compassion is a quiet revolution. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. But it stays. Like the earth beneath your feet. Like the river that keeps flowing. Like the sun that rises each day whether we notice or not. Steady. Gentle. Unshakable. Compassion won't change the world with loud declarations or fast results. But it changes every moment. Every word you choose. Every way you look at someone who is hurting. Every time you don't react. Slowly, silently, the world within you becomes more peaceful. And the world around you softens in response. Don't think compassion is only for the good people. It's for those brave enough to stay awake. Because only when you're awake to the truth of your own pain, and the pain of others, do you understand, everyone is suffering in their own way. And that truth doesn't make you bitter. It opens up a vast space inside, a space where you can pause, breathe, and whisper to yourself, today, I will be a little more kind. Not because the world needs fixing. But because the world needs one person who refuses to be swept away. One person who keeps their heart intact. One person who understands that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to fight back. Not to hurt. Not even yourself. Compassion transforms intense emotions. When anger arises, it often feels like fire, blazing, uncontrollable, and urgent. Our first instinct might be to lash out, defend ourselves, or make someone else feel the heat of our suffering. But in the practice of compassion, we learn a different way. Not to suppress the fire. Not to throw it at others. But to sit beside it. To feel its heat, understand its nature. And gently cool it with presence. Part true compassion is not about denying emotions. It's about holding them in a space vast enough that they begin to soften on their own. Anger, fear, jealousy, these emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. Each of them says, there is pain here. Look more closely. But we've been taught to either bury them or explode with them. Neither brings peace. The person who walks the path of compassion doesn't react impulsively. They pause. They turn inward. When anger arises, they don't scream. They breathe. They feel the tightness in the body. They listen to the storm inside without judgment. They don't pretend it's not there. They don't pretend to be calm. They simply stay with it. And in that sacred space of staying, something begins to shift. Anger, when met with understanding, begins to reveal its root. Often, it is not hatred. It is hurt. A wound that has not been seen. A need that has gone unmet. A cry for connection that came out twisted. And when you see that, truly see it, you no longer want to fight your anger. You want to hold it. Just as you would hold a child in pain. This is the quiet power of compassion. It transforms not by force, but by presence. It turns anger into clarity. Fear into gentleness. Jealousy into gratitude. But this doesn't happen quickly. It takes deep inner work. It takes honesty. It takes the willingness to stop running and start feeling, fully, tenderly, with eyes wide open. Compassion is the bridge between reaction and wisdom. Without it, we become prisoners of our moods, swinging wildly between silence and rage, denial and collapse. But with compassion, we learn to ride the waves. We learn to speak not from the storm, but from the calm that comes after it. There are moments in life when someone says something that pierces your heart. Or when things fall apart and despair knocks at the door. The ego wants to strike, to defend, to blame. But the compassionate heart responds differently. It may still feel the pain deeply, but it chooses not to pass it on. It chooses instead to hold it in awareness, and let it dissolve in its own time. This is not weakness. This is not passivity. This is the highest form of inner strength, to feel everything, yet act from wisdom. To be deeply affected, yet remain anchored. To know that the emotions do not define you, but they are a doorway to deeper self-understanding. Buddhist teachings remind us that every emotion, no matter how intense, is impermanent. It comes. It peaks, and it passes, if we don't cling to it or push it away. And compassion gives us the spaciousness to witness this dance without getting lost in it. It helps us become the watcher, not just the experiencer. The next time strong emotions arise, ask yourself, not, how do I get rid of this, but, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Then breathe. Stay. Soften. Offer yourself the same gentle curiosity you would offer a dear friend. Over time, you'll begin to see, what you once thought was rage was actually grief. What you once called jealousy was longing. And beneath every wave of emotion is something human, something worthy of love. The practice of compassion is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming more deeply human, more present, more honest, more alive. And as your inner world becomes more spacious and tender, you'll find yourself reacting less and responding more. Not from habit, but from insight. Not from ego, but from the quiet wisdom of the heart. Part 5, Compassion builds strong relationships. Compassion isn't just a gentle feeling we reserve for special moments. It's the very foundation of deep, lasting human connection. In a world where people are quick to react, quick to judge, and slow to understand, a compassionate heart is both rare and powerful. It becomes the quiet glue that holds relationships together, even when they've been strained, stretched, or broken. A compassionate person doesn't approach others with criticism or blame. They don't look for what's wrong, but for what's hurting, in themselves and in those around them. They know that behind every angry word, there may be a wound. Behind every silence, perhaps a fear. Compassion doesn't ask, what's wrong with you? It wonders gently, what happened to you? In families, compassion shows up not in grand gestures, but in the small things, the willingness to listen. To not interrupt, to not immediately correct or impose one's own view. It's the patience to sit with a child's confusion without rushing to fix it. It's the humility to apologize first. Even when you're not entirely at fault, simply because you value the connection more than being right. At work, a compassionate leader doesn't just manage performance, they care about people. They recognize that human beings aren't machines. They have off days, carry burdens, experience grief, and struggle with inner doubts. A compassionate team isn't one where no one makes mistakes, but one where mistakes are met with understanding and growth, rather than shame or punishment. In romantic relationships, compassion is what keeps love from becoming conditional. It's what allows us to love not just the parts of the other person that are easy and beautiful, but also the parts that are messy, insecure, and afraid. A compassionate partner knows that everyone has emotional scars, and they don't try to fix them, but hold space for healing. In society, compassion is a bridge, across generations. Across political divides, across cultures. It helps us stay human in a digital age where connection can become shallow and interactions transactional. It reminds us that every person, whether a stranger on the street or someone on the other side of the world, is not so different from us. They too want to be seen, heard, and loved. But let's be clear, compassion doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean allowing toxic behavior to continue or tolerating abuse. Real compassion includes clear boundaries. It knows when to say no with kindness. It knows when to walk away from relationships that are repeatedly harmful. In fact, sometimes the most compassionate act is letting go, with love, for the well-being of both people. True compassion is not just something we do. It's something we are. It becomes the lens through which we see the world. And from that place, we begin to cultivate relationships that are rooted not in control, fear, or neediness, but in mutual respect, trust, and care. So if you want to build stronger relationships, in your family, in your friendships, in your workplace, and even with yourself, begin with compassion. Speak less to impress, and more to understand. Listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. See beyond behavior, into what might be unspoken. And most of all, hold space, for imperfection, for growth. For love to unfold in its own time. When we live this way, something begins to shift. Conflict becomes softer. Wounds begin to close. Misunderstandings turn into opportunities for deeper connection. And through it all, we realize, compassion was never just about being nice. It was the strength we needed all along, to build something real, something lasting, something human. Part 6. Practicing compassion in daily life. Compassion doesn't need to be a grand act. It doesn't have to change the whole world in one moment. True compassion begins in the quiet spaces of everyday life, in how we speak to ourselves, how we respond to others, and how we carry our presence in this world. Like drops of water filling a jar. Small, consistent acts of compassion eventually shape the way we live and the kind of peace we experience. One of the most powerful and gentle ways to cultivate compassion is through metta meditation, also known as loving-kindness meditation. It begins with a simple phrase. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. You sit quietly, breathing gently, and silently repeat these words in your mind, not as a wish, but as an offering. A gift to yourself. Then, you extend the same wishes to others. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. At first, this may feel unfamiliar, even forced. But over time, it softens the heart. It rewires the way we relate to others, from a place of judgment, comparison, or fear, to a place of kindness and genuine care. Metta is not about ignoring suffering or pretending everything is fine. It's about holding ourselves and others with compassion, even in the midst of struggle. It's about looking at someone, a friend, a stranger, or even someone who's hurt you, and choosing to wish them peace. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free of hatred. But compassion isn't confined to the meditation cushion. It lives in the everyday moments. When you pause instead of snapping back. When you offer a smile to someone who looks tired. When you forgive yourself for falling short. When you listen without interrupting. When you give someone the benefit of the doubt. These small acts are not insignificant. They are the building blocks of a compassionate life. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present, and willing to return to compassion when you drift away. You might begin your day by placing your hand on your heart and whispering, I choose to live with compassion today. Or end your day by reflecting, where did I show kindness today? Where can I do better tomorrow? Over time, compassion becomes less of a practice and more of a way of being. You find yourself less reactive, more forgiving. You start to notice the suffering beneath someone's anger. You begin to soften, not as a sign of weakness, but as a profound strength that allows you to stay open in a world that often asks you to shut down. Even when the world feels chaotic, compassion can be your anchor. Even when you're hurting, compassion can be your light. You can be the calm in someone's storm, the gentle reminder that love still exists, that kindness is still possible, that even the smallest gesture matters. And most importantly, don't forget that compassion includes you. Speak to yourself like someone you love. Offer yourself the same patience you give others. Let go of the idea that you must earn your own kindness. You are already worthy of it, simply because you are human. So take a breath. Place your hand over your heart. Whisper softly, "May I be well. May you be well. May we all be free." And then, go live it. Not perfectly. Just sincerely. In your words. In your silence. In how you love. That is the path of daily compassion. That is the quiet revolution of a kind heart. The true power of an open heart. What if the strongest people in this world aren't the ones who never break, but the ones who break and still choose to stay open? In Buddhist teachings, strength is never defined by dominance, hardness, or control. It is defined by resilience, tenderness, and the capacity to remain kind even when the world feels unkind. There is a quiet power in a soft heart that does not shut down when wounded. There is a noble strength in being fully present with pain, not to run from it, not to react blindly, but to breathe with it. Hold it with compassion, and respond from love. This is the essence of what it means to live with a strong back and soft front, as Dr. Brené Brown so beautifully put it. A strong back means inner stability, the spine of our being rooted in values, discipline, mindfulness, and deep wisdom. It's what allows us to stand tall in the face of adversity without collapsing into bitterness or reactivity. But just strength alone is not enough. A soft front is the heart's willingness to remain vulnerable, to feel fully, to love deeply, to grieve honestly. It is the courage to be human, even in moments of fear, shame, or sorrow. A soft front means not closing our hearts even when we are hurt. It means holding ourselves and others gently, with empathy instead of judgment. Together, these two, strong back and soft front, create the foundation of spiritual strength. This is not an easy path. Life gives us countless reasons to harden. Betrayal, loss, disappointment. Injustice, each one can plant seeds of armor around our hearts. And the world often tells us, don't feel too much. Don't care too much. Stay strong. Don't let them see you cry. But Buddhist wisdom invites us into another way, not to harden, but to awaken. Not to suppress our tenderness, but to realize that it is our tenderness that gives us depth. That being broken open is not the end, but the beginning of greater love. When we remain open, we are no longer afraid of our emotions. We see anger not as an enemy, but as a sign that something in us needs attention and compassion. We see sadness not as a weakness, but as an honest response to impermanence. We see vulnerability not as failure, but as connection. This openness does not make us fragile. In fact, it makes us unshakable. Because now, we're not protecting a false image of invincibility. We're living in alignment with the truth of our being. We're not numbing ourselves to survive, but showing up fully to live. An open heart listens without needing to fix. It forgives not because it condones harm, but because it chooses peace over revenge. It sets boundaries with clarity and care, not from fear, but from love. It sees the suffering behind someone's harsh words and responds with presence, not punishment. And most of all, an open heart never gives up on the possibility of healing, within ourselves, within others, within this shared human experience. This kind of strength doesn't shout. It doesn't boast. It doesn't need to win. It simply exists like a calm mountain, grounded, spacious, quietly powerful. In the end, the greatest strength is not how high we can build our walls, but how fully we can open our doors, to pain, to love, to life itself. And perhaps, this is the journey we are all here to walk, not toward perfection, but toward wholeness. Not to become untouchable, but to become deeply alive. So when the world feels heavy, and your heart feels fragile, remember, your softness is not your weakness. It is your sacred gift. It is the light that keeps your soul awake. Let it guide you. Which part of this touched you the most? Was it the moment you realized that strength isn't found in resistance, but in surrender? Was it when you saw that the gentlest path is often the most courageous? Or was it the quiet reminder that compassion is not weakness, but the ground where all true power is born. If something in this message stirred your heart, I invite you to pause. Breathe into that space. Let it grow roots. Let it soften the parts of you that have had to be hard for too long. You don't have to armor up to walk through life. You don't need to win every battle. What you need, what we all need, is the strength to stay open. To feel, to forgive, to begin again. In a world that often confuses toughness with resilience, and silence with strength, it is revolutionary to say, I choose kindness. It is bold to say, I choose to listen, even when it's hard. It is powerful to say, I will not let this world make me bitter. True strength lives in a heart that still believes, in people, in healing, in the quiet miracle of compassion. It doesn't come from winning arguments or hiding pain. It comes from showing up, with presence, with grace, with the willingness to love through the mess. And if you're reading this and feeling like your heart is too tired, too broken, too overwhelmed to hold space for compassion, know this. You don't have to do it perfectly. You only have to be willing. Start small. With yourself. With a single breath that says, may I be well. May I be at peace. And then extend it outwards, gently, sincerely. May you be well. May all beings find peace. These small practices, they change lives. They change relationships. They change the world. So, I ask again, what touched you the most? Was there a sentence that softened something in you? A moment of recognition that made you feel less alone? Please share in the comments. I read every word. This space is not just a channel, it's a sanctuary. For truth. For growth. For healing. And if this message brought you even a moment of clarity or comfort today, consider subscribing to this channel. Here, we explore how ancient wisdom can meet the modern heart. How to live strong, but with a tender, awake presence. How to rise without losing your softness. Because strength and compassion don't cancel each other out. They complete one another. You're not alone on this path. We're walking it together, one breath, one practice, one insight at a time. Thank you for being here. May your heart remain open. May your strength be rooted in love.